Hey guys, so if you're new here, I'm here with Shuri. She is my Ashton Drake, Kiara's first steps doll. And today I just sort of wanted to talk about the doll collecting hobby and how I kind of got into the doll community. Since I was a child, I've just always loved dolls. Like I would play with Barbies, for example, whenever they were available to me, but I didn't really have that many of my own. And I my parents, they separated when I was very very young, and I had a stepsister. I have a stepsister who is she became my sister at a very very young age too, and she's only 2 years younger than me. And so we grew up together, and we would often play with her Bratz toys. She used to have Bratz. I had a couple of my own too. And I would always play with them with her. But whenever I was on my own, it would tend to be baby dolls that I would play with. Like I had a baby Annabelle, I had a baby Born, I had a baby all gone. Like if you're a 90s kid, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. It's one where she was like cherry scented, and she had this pot with a spoon that was like magnetic, and the pot was cherry scented. It was full of fake cherries, and basically it had a magnetic spoon that had cherries on it, and when you put it to her mouth, the cherries would go back into the spoon. I had that doll as well. I loved that doll so much. Yeah, so whenever I was on my own, generally I would be playing with like a baby doll or like a teddy, like something cuddly, I guess, something quite cuddly and like that I could nurture. I did occasionally play with Bratz by myself, but not as often. And usually when I did, it would be like a parent with a child, like a child brat, because I just loved with baby dolls, I just loved the whole nurturing element of it. See, as I grew older, I was like, I'm too old for dolls, gotta get rid of them. Um, but then I started to hear more and more about like adult doll collectors and all this stuff, and I did actually hear about reborns. I actually found my smallest Ashton Drake doll, the very first one I had, Lyra. I found her in a charity shop, believe it or not. I referred to her as a reborn. Then Ashton Drakes aren't technically reborns, but a lot of people like class them as the same because they're obviously a realistic doll. They're just, to me, they're like starter reborns. And obviously some people don't progress like further up the line to more expensive ones, but they're kind of like a way to ease people into having a real reborn. But I personally just love the Ashton Drakes as they are. Like I'm not really that interested in having like a really like a real reborn like at the moment. Maybe that will change in the future, but at the moment I'm not too concerned about that because I do have my Ashton Drakes. So I bought her, and for ages I just left her. She was just kind of on the shelf. I'll be honest. I interacted with her a little bit. I used to pick her up and cuddle her quite a bit. Um, but I didn't really interact too much with her because I thought that was like a childish thing to do and blah blah blah. But I gradually started to, worry about that less and be like, well, if it's childish, it's childish. What harm am I doing? And that's my opinion now. If people think I'm childish, whatever, whatever. And I started to gradually interact with her more, and then I actually came across a television show that made me. It's kind of what piqued my interest, I guess, into the reborn community, because it's a show called Servant, and basically there's a doll in it, a little baby boy reborn called Jericho, and the woman that owns him, basically she treats him completely like he's real, and it's not because of role play or anything like that. It's because she does not know the difference between him and a real baby. Like, she genuinely believes that this doll is a real baby. I will warn you guys, if you do look into that show, look into it before you watch it, because the whole story behind the Jericho doll could be pretty upsetting. There is some scenes that are not like, could really upset some people. They're not very nice. And I remember just feeling fascinated by this doll. Like, I was just completely fascinated by this Reborn, and I was like, you know, what are real Reborns like? What's the real Reborn community like? You know, because I knew for a fact that what was being shown on the show was not what Reborns were used for generally, and I don't think that's what the show was trying to imply. It's just like they needed a realistic doll, and obviously you can't really look much further than the Reborn community. You don't need to look much further than that, to be honest. And so I remember looking up, I think I started watching YouTube videos, I started looking at pictures on Instagram, and then I actually made a Instagram for my Lyra. Because she was the only Reborn like doll that I had, essentially. She was my very first Ashton Drake. I didn't have Shuri. I've got another Ashton Drake, Abby, which is the second one that I had. This is the most recent one. And but I at this point I was just posting Lyra, and I have some like display dolls now. And occasionally I'd post pictures of them too. And I just got really into the Reborn community and just the doll community in general. And obviously I started to understand the difference between, you know, real Reborns and Ashton Drakes. You know, I learned a lot about the Reborn community. I kind of it helped me accept myself and like my own kind of feelings, because I realized there wasn't one particular way to be an adult doll collector. You know, there's some people that do have dolls that just sit on shelves, don't ever post pictures of them, and there's others that role play with them quite frequently, you know, take pictures of them all the time. And then there's a lot of people that are kind of in between. Like, they don't necessarily role play to the extent that some other people do. Because I know there's some people, I don't think it's that common, but I know there's some people that role play quite a bit, and that's fine. You know, you get from your doll whatever you need from your doll, essentially. But I think most people I follow would say they're kind of in between. Like, they don't just sit their dolls on a shelf and never touch them, but they don't like necessarily always role play with them that much, or if they do, like, usually it's for camera. For me, I would say like I'm somewhere in between. Like, I love pretending to feed my dolls, for example, but I don't do it like all the time. I'm not there like, you know, I don't stick to a schedule or anything like that. When I do mostly do it, it's for like practice, I guess, for photos. And yeah, from there I've kind of just been sold on the Reborn community, I guess. It was just like, it was kind of like a revelation, you know, because obviously I had internalized this whole idea that I couldn't like dolls, I couldn't play with dolls anymore because I was too old, I'm not a child, you know. But I've realized, you know, there's no such thing as being too old for dolls. You know, we regard these dolls differently than a child regards theirs, mostly because, like, even if we play with them in like a similar kind of way, you know, it's fine. Like, why should we have to grow out of something that brings us joy? You know, if something can bring a child joy, then why can it not bring joy to an adult? You know, why does someone that finds joy from a doll have to stop finding joy from a doll when they reach a certain age? You know, it's just a silly thing. So that's my little discussion. I wasn't completely sure I was gonna go with this. I was gonna upload a different video, but I didn't end up liking how the previous video I was gonna upload turned out. It was just like a changing video, but I didn't particularly like changing my dolls on camera, so I just ended up being like, nah, I'm not gonna upload it. But yeah, so I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit, I guess, about my doll experience and how I kind of got into the community. And because it's always really interesting to hear how other people did, you know, and how, you know, the experiences other people have with dolls. And, you know, a lot of the time it could be quite similar, you know, like not a lot of us go straight from having dolls as a child to having these. A lot of the time there's a process of having to be like, well, you don't have to be a child to like dolls, you know, because that's what society tells us, unfortunately, is that we have to grow out of dolls. But I feel like a lot more people in society now are being a bit more open-minded and realizing that, you know, the same joy that you have as a child from something like this doesn't necessarily have to change just because you're older. You know, it's just you regard them in a different way. Obviously, these can't be handled really in the same way that a child's doll can be handled. You know, you can't throw this across the room. You can't be too rough with your uh reborn dolls, Ashton Drake dolls, you know, because they're more delicate and they're designed for older collectors. So, um, yeah, that's basically the end of the discussion. Um, I'll see you guys next time. I'm not sure what my next video is going to be, but probably not another discussion one. Probably just something like role playing. But I'll see you guys in the next time. That's it for now.